Action!
Deliver Us from Evil was a concept that Jerry Bruckheimer had, which was he wanted to make Serpico meets The Exorcist. And that idea came as a result of reading Ralph Sarchi's memoirs, a book called Beware the Night.
I love true stories. So this is based on an actual series of events he went through in the Bronx. And so it's fun to bring the real paranormal to an audience.
The ceremony is about to begin.
We read a proposal about 11 or 12 years ago that Ralph Sarchi brought us, and we thought it was interesting, intriguing. It's a true life story. I love reality. It was scary, so it just excited me, and it's something that we thought we could bring to the big screen.
It wasn't just an account of the paranormal. The paranormal stories were very interesting. They had a certain air of credibility to them. And then when I went and met him, he certainly was somebody who believed it and wasn't any kind of a huckster or charlatan. But it was the fact that he was such a hardcore cop. And I didn't really get that from his book as much as I did meeting him in person.
We spent a lot of time with Sarchi in New York when we were writing the script and driving around with him. You know, going out in the South Bronx, going to the precinct, spending time with his family, getting him to just open up and talk to us.
Beware the Night is a nonfiction work. It's a compilation of my cases, my most profound cases, the things that I've worked on over the years. I'd like to say my life was boring, but being a cop in New York City for 20 years, it wasn't boring.
The 4-6 precinct in the South Bronx is the precinct that covers the highest crime district in the entire country. The FBI calls that square mile the most dangerous square mile in America. Ralph, for a decade, was an undercover cop with 6 cops working underneath him who was a part of special ops street crimes, which meant he was out trying to stop crimes in progress. I mean, the guy's been in more fights than he can even remember.
And I put a lot of police anecdotes in there to try to show the differences and the similarities between primary evil, which comes from the devil, and secondary evil, which is the evil that we as human beings do and perpetrate on each other.
I think the fact that you would both explore this kind of spiritual, supernatural kind of subject matter, but also the really gritty, realistic South Bronx cop, to portray that character and get to learn more about that world was really interesting.
Salvatore Alberghetti, we're from the 4-6 precinct. May we come in?
I would have had very little, perhaps no interest in doing this film purely based on the fact that it was this genre. The fact that Scott's movies are character films that are set in genres is what it's about to me.
Eric Bana spent a lot of time with Ralph Sarchi, really plays Ralph Sarchi like Ralph Sarchi. I mean, his accent is not even as extreme as the real Ralph Sarchi's, but he got his mannerisms down, he got his mentality down.
When I read the script, the thing that jumped out to me the most was just a brilliantly written, intense and fascinating character who I thought would be a really great challenge.
I was like an animal, Couldn't stop myself. I didn't want to stop myself.
The character of Mendoza was based on 2 priests that were mentors of the real Ralph Sarchi, and they were both Irish, and so rather than have the stereotypical white Irish priest, I wanted to have a Latin American priest, and Edgar just helped me deepen that role tremendously.
We all, have this preconceived ideas of clergy and the people who work for institutionalized religion, and we tend to forget in many cases that they're human beings as well. With a past, with emotions of their own, with experiences of their own. And that's one of the most interesting things that I found, in this character, that he's not afraid to talk about those experiences, to use those experiences as an example in order to empathize with the other.
The working relationship with Edgar's been fantastic, and we've had lots of very long dialogue scenes in very small, confined spaces.
What you gave me wasn't justice. It was vengeance. And vengeance destroys the avenger.
Normally in a film like this, you may be lucky to get one of those moments, and very brief ones at that. And we've had some incredibly long scenes with very, very large amounts of dialogue, and complex subject matter. And so I think we've both treated all those scenes like a real feast. Very blessed to be given that material.
Absolve me from your sins.
Do you think she's single?
Joel McHale is my best friend. I wrote the role for him. And I don't know what the role of Butler would have been if it weren't for Joel.
Yeah, well, he owes me. I mean, he doesn't owe me. I have a lot of dirt on him and photos and recordings. He's committed a lot of crimes that are legal in only a few countries. So I said I would not expose him, and he offered me this role.
People didn't really think of Joel McHale as the first guy you would make a South Bronx cop, but he was who I wrote the role for, and he's much more like that character than the other characters he plays.
He carries a bunch of knives with him, and he would pull out a knife before he would pull out a taser or a club or his gun sometimes. He's happy to fight. So I think there's a side of me that was like, especially as a kid, I definitely was like that. And the amount of violent sports that I played, I guess it falls in line with that. But, you know, I haven't killed anyone recently.
I think in order to portray a cop accurately, the relationship between him and his partner needs to be completely realistic. And the reality is that there's a lot of gallows humor. I mean, humor is what gets you through, and especially with what these guys have to deal with. Fortunately for me, Scott cast Joel McHale, whose comedy background was really beneficial.
Name me one play on the Red Sox.
Larry Bird.
I'm pregnant.
Are you sure?
Yeah. A lot of my friends and people I know want to just, their whole goal is like, I just want to raise a really great family. Like, I want to be a great mother and a great wife, and I really want to make this really great family. And that's what I wanted to make Jen.
I don't like it when you see the kind of go-to relationship dynamic of the guy that is working the long hours and coming home to a wife who's giving him a hard time. And Olivia had great ideas in that regard about just portraying a wife who's truly understanding and a partner in that life.
One of the hardest strengths to have is to hold back and just to love without any judgment. And that you have to be a really strong person to be able to just, you know, love people through it.
Sean Harris was probably the most interesting piece of casting because I knew that the movie succeeded or failed depending upon the quality of that actor. The role that he is playing, the movie can not be better than that antagonist. And if you didn't buy him, the movie would not work. If he wasn't scary, the movie would not work. I just knew that this guy would go all the way with the role of Santino. And I offered the role to him and never offered it to anyone else, never seriously considered anyone else. And Sean came in and did something that was, for me as a director, some of the most amazing acting that I've ever seen.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in?
Well, we decided to shoot the movie in the Bronx because that's where it takes place. It gives the film real verisimilitude, which we love. The locations are fantastic. They're actual places where Sarchi worked and patrolled and met some of these people that are portrayed in the movie.
You know, it's set in one of the toughest crime areas in the country, and that's something he makes very explicit in the book. And he talks a lot about how the setting and working in that setting every day affected him. The violence of the job, the violence getting inside of him, which is something we really wanted to explore.
The construction of the buildings, their proximity to each other, the way that they're laid out, the kinds of people that inhabit the Bronx, it's just its own universe. It's even within New York City, it's its own place.
The Bronx has never really recovered from its reputation from the late 60s and the 70s. And people forget that that's more than 30 years ago now. And it's been slowly coming back. The South Bronx that people think of doesn't really exist.
You get a definite better sense of old New York, I think, than if you were on the Upper East Side or Upper West Side. That there's so much turnover. There's so much new construction. There's not as much, and so it's kind of a little time capsule that's always open.
We're shooting a lot of things that would be so expensive to build and so complex to build, and the amount of scenic art time to get the layers and layers of paint and age, and it's really such a mixture of materials and textures. We could never have had the time to lavish on developing the surfaces of the walls like that.
The Bronx Zoo is beautiful. You know, it's a really well-tended, old, special piece of New York history that is protected and cared for, and for that reason, they have not let movies shoot there since the early 1980s. And I think the reason they let us shoot there was because our movie was such an homage to the NYPD, and because it was in the Bronx, and the main character was a revered officer, and we had the assistance of the NYPD, so they let us shoot in there. But when you go inside of it, it's so sprawling and vast. It's not a zoo where, you know, every 10 feet you're walking, you see another animal. Sometimes you have to walk long distances to find the next habitat. And so the idea of a character being missing in there and them going searching in there without power at night, it's creepy. And having been in there at night when things are closed down, it is creepy. I mean, the zoo's a very strange place at night after hours because the animals are all still there, you know, and they're still doing what animals do. And it has a certain dangerous quality to it. To give the movie a sense of authenticity and realism, we had to shoot there. And the more real the movie feels as a cop movie, the scarier the paranormal stuff will be, and the scarier the supernatural and the demonic material will be when it enters in, because you will believe you're in the real world, because you are.
You know, Scott Derrickson's got a very, very good grasp on what the devil is, preternatural and supernatural. He's got a very religious vein to him, and I don't think it was an accident that he is the screenwriter and the director for this movie.
You know, it wasn't just another story about somebody claiming to have experienced the demonic or the paranormal or, you know, things that were unusual. It was this guy, it was this cop who was highly respected in the force, in the NYPD, the most unlikely guy in the world to be entering into all of this, but it happened. And he was a lapsed Catholic and a skeptic when it started, and he was an assistant to an exorcist when it ended. And that's a guy whose story is worth telling.